sculpture of the kneeling pose, and right now it's still wet. So I'm starting the plague doctor sculpture, but I'm still working on this one. And right now the clay, it's what's called leather hard, and it's kind of stiff. It's not soft anymore, and I am leaving it in such a way that it is drying off. I have chunks of clay here that have separated. So one of the things that's going to happen is that the parts that stick out, like the ears, for example, it's going to dry out first. Any of these extremities, like it's going to dry out. So what we have to do now is basically just let this dry so we can fire it. And there are still a lot of things you can do if you want to keep working on it. You can like even sand it, you can burnish it, but most likely I'm just going to leave it like that. You know, the more I look at it like this, the more I'm always like messing with it. But the idea is that you want to be able to let your sculpture dry. And we're still not done with the part that it's going to help the firing. Remember, we hollowed out the inside. All of it is hollow. But the issue now is that we have to connect the hole from the inside of the body all the way to the floor. And before we do that, we really just have to lift the sculpture up and kind of dig from the arms. Like we have to kind of, I think I'm going to do it from the legs and from the very base of the legs. Now, I'm already seeing some cracks here, and that is fine. We can kind of fix a lot of these things, but that's what happens when you let something dry. And we do have to kind of lift it up from the base, and it is a little tricky. There we go. See, it's separating. And we kind of want that because that creates a lot of the cracks. And I'll show you a crack that is happening right here. So this happens a lot if you let your clay dry and you don't separate it from the bottom, is it starts to develop cracks, but often you can fix those. But what I'm going to do now is just kind of see if I can lift it up, that way I can move it. So we have to be extremely careful. There we go, there we go. So there we go, we lifted it up. And now we have to put it slowly. And I'm going to find a smaller base, I'm going to put it on it here, and I don't want to hold it for too long. Let's see if I can put it here. Just make sure that it's on there. Take your tool like this and go over these edges and just kind of remove a little bit of the clay, because you're going to be putting it on a table, and most likely people are not going to be putting anything that's fancy. So you want to bevel it. Just kind of do this. Just bevel it really carefully. We're just scooping the bottom part, and I tend to use like a screw gun with a drill bit, and I'll kind of just drill it up the arm and link it to the main hollow point in the torso and the pelvis. And then the same thing for the legs, you know, a little bit of the arms. That way we can kind of create a little the venting system. So this is that fired sculpture that I did, and what I'm talking about, this by the way is the color that this clay is going to turn. And I kind of like the color of this much more. So I'm probably going to be staining this today, but this is what I'm talking about. This right here, I used the drill before I put it in the kiln, of course, and I drilled into the hollow of the torso. And that's what you got to do. You know, one thing that happens too with the clay, it shrinks. So the size that you do is not the size that it becomes. So it's just kind of something to kind of keep it, you know, keep in mind, because it does shrink a little bit. Grog clay tends to shrink less, but this is just the nature of the beast of clay.